Hello. In this video, I'm going to be talking about three approaches and three theories of career development. So Rowe's needs based approach, and then Brown's value based holistic model of career and life decision making, and then the last is the chaos theory of career. So I'm going to be pulling this from the Paying text from 2019. So I'm going to start with Rowe's approach, the needs based. So Rowe had an interesting philosophy. It's almost a mix of like psychodynamic as well as an attachment based form of career development. So Anne Rowe basically posited that our early caregiver needs and roles and unmet needs will play into which careers we choose. So, for example, if we let's just say that we really struggled with feeling connected and close to our early caregivers, so we didn't feel that unconditional connection, and like that could impact a client later in their life in a lot of different ways. It could lead to them having this avoidant attachment style, so not wanting to work with people, or wanting to, or being kind of hard to address the people dynamic of work and in work roles. But it could also be that maybe they want that need to be met through their career work. So honestly, a lot of counselors sometimes like are I think if we're honest with ourselves as counselors, that sometimes there are these inner needs that are met as through our career role as a counselor, that we're able to feel a sense of connection, and especially in the training process as well of going working through our own issues and kind of having some of those needs met and feeling a sense of closeness with clients. Like that can be a way of like almost like having a corrective emotional experience through our careers. Uh, Obviously that's a problem if that's significantly influencing, that just focusing on our own needs and not on the clients. Obviously that would be unethical. But if the client's still the focus, but we can have these like almost residual benefits as counselors. So I think that's the key background from Anne Rowe's needs based approach, is that parent child interaction, and similar to attachment. It talks about the avoidance, talks about acceptance, talks about maybe an ambivalent connection to early caregivers, that can kind of surface into the career development process. Anne Rowe also did a lot actually with what's a classification system, basically, of kind of classifying how to organize careers in a lot of different ways. It's not as popular. Holland's approach is actually a lot more popular in most occupational databases of kind of how to organize careers into different clusters. So the RIASEC codes from Holland's approach is more common, but Anne also did some with that. So yeah, that was the main point that I wanted to emphasize, is that parent-child dynamic. So now on to Brown's value-based approach. So Brown kind of had a few key points, and I'm not going to cover every single point, but I think the two overarching uh, values-based emphases for Brown's approach is that, obviously, as it's in the name, values are central to the approach. That we make career decisions based on our values, our highest priority. So it's almost like career decision making is this sifting process of trying to determine what's most important to me in my career, and then how can I get close to that? How can I make a decision that will align with who I am, so I don't have this values conflict that might lead to career transitions, is having this values conflict that I can't feel fulfilled here, I can't feel connected here, or it's like maybe a moral thing. I can't feel like I can morally stay here. It's against my values. Uh, but then Brown also talked about cultural values and the influence of culture in the development and construction of values. So sometimes a big part of the career development process can be, hey, we need to kind of dissect, analyze, make sense of the cultural influences and the cultural values that our clients were formed in. Uh, so I'm thinking back to, let's see, thinking of a client at one point so there was one client. Okay. Several were going through my mind as I was thinking there and pondering for a second, but one that's coming up for me right now is a client who just really did not care about education, didn't want to be there, wasn't important to him, wanted to go military, but his dad was basically saying, hey, you got to go to school. Like, that's the only way I'm going to fund you. Like, I'll give you, that pathway. And he couldn't join the military yet due to some legal issues that were restricting him for a certain period of time. So there's obviously this values conflict of like he didn't value the academic environment, kind of the book learning, the kind of classroom lecture style of education. It just wasn't resonating with him. So, and I think a lot of the classes that he's taken weren't aligned with his values either. He didn't really care. It's not the type of work that was highly prioritized for him. So he came into my office because he was failing his classes. Surprise, surprise. But instead of trying to get him to like, hey, here's strategies to get you to care, or here's time management, I kind of took the approach that like, hey, if you don't care, it doesn't matter what I say to you. And I basically said that to him. I'm just like, if it's not important to you, then it seems like I'm trying to help you figure out your why. Why are you here? And he's like, I don't know. I don't know why I'm here. And yeah, and I'd sometimes just make reflections of doesn't really seem like you want to be here, that you really care about your education. It's not really important to you. And like I wasn't trying to judge him, and I would say that I'm not trying to judge you for that. It's just like that seems to be the honesty of where you're at. And like that really resonated with him that he wasn't there for his own reasons. It was kind of this family cultural norm of valuing like academic learning that just wasn't connecting for him. So a lot of our works were or our work together was kind of implicitly, sometimes explicitly, but usually just implicitly, like renavigating, okay, what are his values? And how can he did value his dad though, and his family influence and his cultural heritage, so it's kind of him trying to dissect, okay, there's certain pieces of pressure from my cultural background that I'm pushing back against that I don't really value, but I do value the support. I do value the father figure that I have and wanting to like please and kind of meet his expectations. Uh, so yeah, that was a big part of our work, and we kind of found a way that he was able to kind of determine there are certain cultural values and family of origin values that do resonate inside of him, and then we were able to also just kind of find where he's different than his family of origin and kind of finding his own intrinsically motivated and values based goals. And then he started to do better. He started to do better with classes. It was still sometimes an uphill battle just based on the learning context, but he found topics that he cared enough about to want to study. So once again, that's just more like a higher education career and just like advising type situation, but it kind of speaks to the importance of values and processing the values. And uh, Brown goes into propositions in the Tang text. It's addressed there, but a lot of it is about collectivistic and individualistic goal, or excuse me, values, and sometimes how there's certain. I think actually the one proposition that I do want to address is the sixth proposition. Is it states that occupational tenure, so the length of time being in a career, is partially the result of the match between the cultural and work values of the worker, the supervisor, and colleagues. So in a way, Brown's model is somewhat similar to trait and factor approaches, in that it's like this matching or this fit, this idea of finding a fit of values, but it's also relational because it's the fit of values between the supervisor, the work setting, and the other colleagues, as well as the client or the worker. So it's this like, how do all of our values, personal and cultural, merge together? I guess my hands are kind of speaking to this like interactive values, synergy of coming together that sometimes take some time in career counseling or working with mental health clients or school counseling clients to like kind of make sense of what are the values, where are the friction points of values, and where is a need for greater openness and understanding of values in order to make a fit work. uh, anyway, so there's a few thoughts for Brown's values based approach. So now I'm going to jump forward to chaos theory of careers. So the chaos theory of careers is getting more into like a spiritual or a non-linear type approach to career development, and it doesn't like have clear techniques of like, here, do this, you need to focus on this one thing. That it's so chaos theory kind of has to do with embracing the nonlinearity, embracing the, I guess to use the word of the theory, embracing chaos. And it kind of has maybe one principle of like the butterfly effect, so the butterfly effect in a really reductionistic way is that, let's just, so the example is with the butterfly effect is that, a butterfly on the other side of the world could flap its wings, and that push of air could then lead to, you know, little changes in that environment that lead to bigger changes that lead to bigger changes that could then lead to like a hurricane or a storm on the other side of the planet. So it's this idea that these small changes that are seemingly disconnected and unjointed are actually connected. Uh, so why does this matter in career counseling? So sometimes career decision making can feel chaotic. It can feel like I'm lost. I don't understand what's going on. Like there's like I'm fired. Maybe that's one. Like someone gets fired and they think that's a terrible thing. But that could be a small spark, or it could feel like a big spark for the person that then sparks them to explore something else. Or because they don't have a career anymore, that they find, and maybe to connect to Krumboldt's work, there's some sort of unplanned or planned happenstance experience that then leads that person in a new direction. At least how I conceptualize chaos theory of careers is as well is that there's almost like this trust. There's this trust that the chaos of the universe will play out in our favor if we're willing to kind of roll roll with the chaos and permit the chaos, permit the unplanned, permit, almost like surrendering to the process of life. Once again, that's much more me. Pryor and Bright are the authors of this approach, and they don't necessarily use those words, but I've kind of made sense of it that way as I've looked at chaos theory principles. So I guess along those lines, in the Tang text on page 146, it talks about complexity, change, chance, and construction. Uh, so complexity kind of has to do with, yeah, like there's so many interconnected details in our career decisions. So Tang names a few that, like there's going to be parental influence, so the impact of parents in decision making, social media, sexual orientation, politics, gender, health, cultural traditions. So all of these are these seemingly chaotic influences on the individual, but they're all kind of morphing into this influence on the person. So it can seem pretty complex, and it can, we likely don't even have an awareness of many of the influences on our career and kind of that individual self-concept development process. Uh, so yeah, part of the chaos theory of careers is like trying to not necessarily control complexity, but being aware of complexity, being open in the career counseling process to like be open to a bigger array of influences, a bigger array of impacts. And then change. So it states in the text here that contextual systems are quite sensitive to change and may cause clients to veer from the desired path of career development. And then Ken goes on to say that many traditional careers or career development theories ignore the influence of change on career decision making. So it almost sees careers like here's a one-time choice and then we're good, done. But chaos theory is like we're always changing. Things are going to be happening to us and changing around us that are going to necessitate more decision making crossroads in our path. Uh, then similar to Krumboldt's as well, change is the norm. So it's like almost like this idea of happenstance of these that we can't stop change, that change is going to happen no matter what. We can't predict, we can't control, as Tang states, these events. So there's going to be these chance factors that are going to impact, our pathway forward. So sometimes the career development process is recognizing chance and being able to roll with chance. I think that's kind of the butterfly effect, as well as like not needing to fight, kind of surrendering to chance. Once again, not in like a nihilistic, oh, I surrender, I give up, I'm not going to try. And that leads to the last principle of control, or excuse me, of construction. That even though we're seemingly in this chaotic experience, that we are still, at least according to this theory, we're still constructors. We're still building our pathway. So there's many influences that we can't control, but we can always kind of, as it states here, they must be proactive in directing their lives. So within the system of chaos, we can do what is in our power to proactively move towards desired pathways. Uh, so yeah, some of you are going to be like totally jiving with this approach, and it's going to be connecting for you and be like, yes, kind of embracing this unknown, embracing this chaos theory, embracing the butterfly effect and the trust that in the process of life. Others are going to be like, that's way too nebulous, that's way too confusing. And I think that's the beauty of the various career development theories is we don't have just one belief system, we don't have one approach. We can kind of find the beliefs that orient us as clinicians to help clients on their way forward. And various clients will kind of connect in various ways these different ideas and these different approaches. So totally normal and important to make space for these different ways of being. So I'll pause there. There is more in the Prior and Bright, the chaos theory of career approach, some of the newer elements, but I kind of want to cover some of those foundational ones in this video as well as the other approaches. So if there are questions or anything, don't hesitate to connect and reach out. Thanks.